Hey Pavel, I'm very happy to see you.
Hello again.
Hi, you recently conducted an internal workshop on incrementality testing. As you know, I am on the mission to find for cool, interesting topics, case studies, methodologies, tools, solutions, basically things that so that we could show to the world of like how we work under the hood. And actually, this topic, is just perfect to record a session with you, ask you a couple of questions, and I'm excited to basically talk with you, pick your brain a couple of topics, especially around incrementality testing. And I also know that you recently faced a specific case when it comes to incrementality testing that is somewhat new to how we operate and how we conduct incrementality tests and how we measure the impact of how incremental, how valuable specific channel is in media mix on behalf of the client, inside of client's media mix. I would love to hear more about that specific case. What happened?
Yeah. So that happened like this week. So we just recently finished the QBR session with a client where we discussed quarterly improvements. So what went good, what went wrong, etc. And generally speaking, efficiency improved a lot. However, there was that question, is that because of the media efficiency, or is that just because, or mostly because of the price? Because a lot of products were discounted during huge parts of Q3. So the client theory was that it's 90% promo and discounted price and 10% media efficiency. And they were happy anyway. They acknowledged that media efficiency improved, media operations were really good, so everything was fine, but that was their idea. And it didn't really stick with me, and I thought that there has to be something wrong with that. And after like thinking about it for a moment, I now think that this is probably just not a good question, because you can't really separate the efficiency from the price. And the better way of thinking about it is to just measure efficiency during the promo price and separately measure efficiency outside of the promo price. And we, as you know, we do work with house, so we trust incrementality test. We think that it's the best way to really assess basically the efficiency of the whole media, but also the channels and also channel tactics and stuff like that. So while planning tests for the next months, we figured that it makes a lot of sense to test at least key channels during the promo periods separately and during the non-promo periods separately. So it's not perfect, because you could say that there are different levels of promo. So you can have small discounts, huge discounts, you can have discounts across the whole website, the whole portfolio, but you can also have just a couple of key products discounted, and how to take that into consideration. So for now, I think just looking at this in totally binary way, so only promo versus non-promo, makes a lot of sense. So we're going to do that. And also one thing that I didn't yet mention to you is actually we want to start with the whole digital test during the promo period and outside of the promo period. So that's going to be super interesting, because I heard about companies that did the whole digital efficiency test with house, and they had just the results was that just 20% of the whole revenue is being driven by paid media, which is not a lot. So that's a problem there. But yeah, I'm really curious just to see. So what's going to be the relationship between our incremental ROAS for the whole media that we run during the promos and outside of the promos? So I suspect that during the promos is going to be significantly higher, but on the other hand, I don't really know. I recently spoken with Pinterest team, and they shared some thoughts on their collaboration with House, and Pinterest actually thinks that incremental ROAS for their channel may be lower during the promo. I didn't really have a time yet to think about it deep enough, but I think that may not be the case, because that sounds just suspicious to me. I think it may be the other way around. But on the other hand, they work with House a lot, and they have some case studies. So yeah, that's I probably have to think about it.
I mean, your mission in many of our client relationship is to find the truth. The truth is to find the answer regarding which channels are to be scaled, because we can squeeze more out of this specific channel, and the ROI on this channel is the highest, and which channels are to be cut or to be reduced, basically. And that's the most important question when it comes to huge spend on that, and the methodology and the tools to run the tests, and the how good you are at this, together with really amazing tools like House.io is just amazing. And basically, it's so cool to work with clients that actually understand, and they are really embedded into the testing cadence, in my opinion. Because like in the past, I know that a lot of brands, they run promos almost all the time or quite often, and to connect with the team and create a situation in which the cadence of testing is connected with the cadence of promo, and kind of plan it together, the inventory, all of the things that are happening in the business, and testing becomes also really important, that it's taken into consideration when it comes to like how to set the whole schedule ahead, the whole cadence of future actions of the business. And it's great to hear that you have a plan ahead to have this this methodology to run during the promo and outside of promo. And I'm really curious about the whole digital test as well. It could be a bummer a little bit if only 20% is driven by paid media, but who knows. Our mission is to find the truth, and maybe there will be some hidden answer inside of that answer, because maybe it's just 20%, but the delay is also very important factor. Yeah, I'm curious on how it's gonna unfold. So it's a really cool case. What do you think about jumping into the basically maybe introducing to the audience, because we don't have too many materials online in video and in general videos and materials in which we talk about how we do projects when it comes to how we run incrementality testing, how we assess attribution, and how we operate. It'd be great if we could also go through this Notion material that you prepared internally, but it's perfect because it's fully anonymized, and as I know, there is no client's data in it. So it's perfect just to present to viewers what's the point of attribution, incrementality testing especially, but also like overall attribution problem and how you try to solve it.
Yeah, absolutely. But first, let me actually comment the first part of your what you just said. So actually, it's really fun because yesterday while talking with House, they acknowledged that our problem is totally opposite to usual problems. So because we have too many good ideas for tests, and usually companies think about maybe fifth or sixth meta test during last 12 months, so that maybe shifting like 10% more spend towards Advantage Plus will improve incrementality, and people are looking for such things. And then we have the whole digital test planned. We have Uplovin test, Roku test, Reddit test. We want to retest Meta outside of the promo period. Then we want to retest the whole Google during the promo period. Then we need to retest Pinterest. Then there's still DV360 to be tested, and we are in the middle of the whole Google test and YouTube test. So that's also going to be fun. Maybe that's going to produce a need to do a retest. So a lot of stuff happening, and then
a lot of channels. That's amazing, and a lot of ideas. As I recall, I also heard that you're in a rather top tier when it comes to the amount and the number of experiments that you run, according to some people that can see more clients doing a lot of tests. So it's also a good testament to your mission of finding truth, and not only you but also the whole team.
Yeah, I mean we use House capacity to its fullest. So we end one test on Thursday, and the next two tests starts on Friday. So yep,
that's how it should be.
Yeah, I was surprised when I heard that people don't do that, because if we can, then why not? I just like doing it so much.
Maybe they don't have such, maybe other agencies or growth strategists, they don't have such huge urge to find the truth and to truly know what's the most incremental channel, what's the best what's the best place to put money into work.
Yeah, but there's a lot of there. Again, I mean, when we first started with incrementality tests, I also had some issues with that. So I I mean, I understand that people have egos and stuff like that, and when channel looks really bad in incrementality readout, and then it looks really good in the attribution, then you're like you have an internal urge to look more at the attribution because you think that, yeah, but it does look really good in that data, so why should I look this way when I can look somewhere else and it looks good? But so it certainly requires a lot of like thinking about it and just maturing as a marketer.
People, like all of the people, when they are faced in a situation in which they have some data proving some ideas that are useful and very convenient in their political environment versus very hard, very difficult and quite pricey, and it takes a long time to get answers, and it requires statistical data, knowledge a little bit, and quite a lot of like conceptual thinking to really have put into work incrementality testing plus like media mix modeling and the whole attribution system versus ad platform attributions like blended ROAS or some other traps that we know that sometimes can lead business into really a bad place in which they focus on brand or retargeting and their blended ROAS is inflated and that hurts business in the long run. Some of traps like that, and politically it's just sometimes useful. And sometimes it's just the result of wrong incentives inside of the client's organization because, let's say, they prioritize short-term, let's say, goals, or there is a lot of pressure to prove and show some good numbers, and then the whole team starts to look at only these good numbers, attribution that is inflated in Meta and Google and Pinterest, and they don't want to even see the truth because it's inconvenient to see the truth. And I think that what I really value in you and all the other people that we work with is that they really strive to find the truth regardless on what's the answer. If our actions didn't bring the results, we have to acknowledge that this is the truth and that's it, and find some other levers which we can use and get out of that place, because being there doesn't produce any value in the long term.
Yeah, but you are also learning a lot when you're like acknowledging that what I didn't really work well enough and I have to pivot. I mean, I like that part. It's
extremely important to know what actions are wrong actions. If you think that learning is about knowing what works, it's not. 70% of experience is knowing what not to do, what actions don't bring value, what actions in that specific case, in that specific environment, in that specific market, in that specific time, let's say, of that market that we are in, this is an action that we shouldn't pursue. And it ticked off, and let's move on to the next one that we think has potentially the big upside versus risk to reward ratio. And this is where we want to, bet and make another bet. And I think that it's very similar to investing or finance, and it requires you to, But like, I absolutely think that you're doing an awesome work in a nutshell.
Yep, thank you. I think that too.
Okay, what do you think about jumping into that?
Yeah.
Just talking about what this whole thing is that we just started to talk about in the beginning of the video.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so this was actually the agenda that I did for a workshop with one of our clients, and basically my goal here was that just to show our thought process and show the possibilities that are on the market. That's why there's a bit of history here, so that this particular client could just see where it's coming from, where it's going, because I think that's also important, just the direction in which the market is moving. Because as for the first point, like with the attribution models, they were dominant through 2010s, and they will most likely never be dominant again. And it's important to see that they may be useful right now, not that useful like 10 years ago, and they will be most likely less useful in the next 10 years. So I think that's important. And generally speaking,
Quick question. By attribution models, we mean basically if we go to Google Ads, dashboard or meta ad dashboard, this is the revenue that is attributed to our campaigns based on pixels data, a Google tag conversion tracking. And in Google Analytics, there is some revenue attributed to specific channels, and it divides the money across different channels. This is what you mean attribution models in that point, right?
Yeah, in that point, yes. And then because of the decline of cookies and generally speaking, the people start thinking about privacy, and people don't want to share that much data like they unknowingly shared in the 2010s, which is good. So generally speaking, attribution models now have issues that they didn't have like 10 or 5 years ago. And it started, well, it maybe not started, but the movement is going faster since iOS 14.5, which greatly decreased the amount of data that platforms got from Apple users. And after that, most channels introduced server-side tracking. So right now it's hard to even do any sort of paid media without server-side tracking. When I audit any type of accounts on paid social channels, if I see that people don't have that, I always flag this as a big mistake. And there are lots of ways to do this. There are better ways and worse ways. I think for some companies, it's totally fine to use Shopify, very basic server-side tracking that's using just the channel apps. So Meta has its own app within the Shopify, and you can connect the server-side tracking via this. And it's something. It's not great, but you have to have at least that. And then better options are, for example, server-side GTM. And right now, on one of our clients, we are using triple whale sonar, which works really great, because that's basically that sends a lot more data than the basic Shopify option. Maybe that's not the place to go into details, because that's not that important in terms of just the strategy and the attribution. But yeah, I think it's worth knowing that there are better and worse ways for server-side tracking. You have to use server-side. There's no point doing paid media without it. And yeah, GTM server side or triple whale sonar or options that we think are really, really good. There's that. Another thing that happened is platforms moved from deterministic to modeled attribution. And it's also a necessity right now, because you don't really have the way to be sure that that particular person bought based on some deterministic number that you connected to that person, because there's no way to do that most of the time. Still, sometimes it's done, but it used to be like the attribution on channels used to be 100% deterministic, and now it's some percent deterministic and a lot, very high percent modeled.
So
it's
what you're
still
saying
fine.
is that there's less and less data being visible to a Meta Pixel or Google Ads tracking, which are the most dominant platforms when it comes to online advertising. And because of that, they had to get more data through server side tracking, and also there are even better solutions that try to capture and send even more data. And basically, the more data you have, the better optimization and the better the algorithms of Meta or Google can work. So that's the point of sending more data. And this is what is changing that was changing for many years now. And we are in the point, this is a historical perspective, right?
Yes, but partially, because for sure there's less data available for Metapixel, because some of the browsers will block Metapixel, some will block some of the parameters, and that's happening certainly. But I think the main problem is actually not that. The main problem is that connecting what Pixel records to actual users on the platforms is actually a lot harder, because you don't get the amount of parameters that you used to, and you're not able to send all that data back to Meta. So back in 2010s, it was a bit of Wild West, and you were able to send just lots of parameters. Right now, especially in the European Union, it's really hard. And when I want to, I have clients that work like when I want to add one parameter to the pixel, I have to have like 1 hour meeting with their lawyer just to really go through everything and just to be 100% sure that I can. And most of the times I actually can't, but I'm still going on those meetings.
Because the policy of the company is just to block anything that can potentially hurt us. Because what if that could hurt us, but they don't think through the lens of like potential gains and upside to the business. And in the US, you don't have to worry about it. You can run an experiment. You can basically increase the efficiency or outside of the European Union. So that's a really sad topic. Let's.
But my main point is that, okay, it's easier in the US, but the direction is the same. So maybe Europe will move faster than US in that direction, but yeah, the direction is still there, and I don't think it's going to change much, although maybe, but
Who knows?
not much. Who knows? So all of that we discussed then resulted in a rise of the walled gardens. So basically Meta and TikTok started their own shops with the ability for people to buy on the platform, because if people buy on the platform, then platform has all the data it needs for optimization, for reporting, for lots of stuff.
Another one, the most famous one, is Amazon, I guess.
Yeah, but Amazon was actually
Marketplaces
rising
in general.
the market. Yeah. So there's that, and then there's a rise of automation with limited data. It just makes more sense to have lower number of campaigns and to have just more automation. Every platform introduced new types of campaigns like Performance Max on Google, Advantage Plus on Meta, Smart Plus. Recently, Reddit launched Reddit Max, which is the same as similar to Performance Max. We are just testing that. So yeah. So moving forward, we have the measurement challenges and channel specific. So Meta used to run on 28 days post-click attribution in 2020 and 2000 before. And then after iOS 14, it decreased the attribution window to 7 days post-click, 1 day post-view. The 28 days is still available, but it's not very useful. There's not a lot of data there. I think they reintroduced it a couple of months ago because it wasn't actually available after iOS 14. So there's that. It impacts attribute. Yeah.
The impact of attribution is basically that some clients, in some instances, the customer journey takes way longer than 7 days since you've seen an ad, then you've thought about it. And in many cases, it takes like 1 year or 2 years, especially in B2B world. And so like 7 days is just like nothing in many cases. So you are basically advertising. There is no way to connect the view or click with specific conversion that happened. Or if that happens, sometimes it's just the last touch. So that's the problem, I guess.
Yeah, and the whole idea of like funnels, but also of the user's journey is usually a lot longer than 7 days and requires a lot of touch points. So first of all, there's a real problem now with just connecting the touch points to the user because just of the landscape that changed so much. And then within the 7 days window, you're just not really able to connect users to the campaign that started the user's journey. So that makes things significantly harder than before. But also it just changed the frameworks that we need to work. And for example, right now, some people still think about sales funnels, and it's fine, but some people think about them too much and they try to have like separated campaigns for the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, and low of the funnel, and it doesn't really make sense these days. One of the people from our organization a couple of months ago, he posted on LinkedIn some article from Google that said that right now everything should be labeled as messy middle instead of top of the funnel or middle of the funnel or other parts of the funnel. And I think that's true. I think that's what it is. And I think we have to trust algorithms more. We still have to do what we can to like understand the situation, you still can just convert a lot of people from the funnel and not introduce enough people, and that still may be a problem, and you still need to react to that. You don't want to react in a way like you would react 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, you would just introduce like separate campaign for that particular stage of funnel. And right now, it's not exactly that easy. Although there are still like such options. So we are experimenting with House to test like brand awareness campaigns on Meta, maybe campaigns optimized towards view content, because there's a very real issue with that shorter attribution window, which is that algorithms are just looking for people who are able to convert within the 7 days window. And not everyone is just able to do that. And algorithms will miss people that are able to convert after 10 days, after 20 days, after 30 days. And these are like people who absolutely are potential customers and may bring a lot of lifetime value, but you have to be really creative to find them. And you have to find them outside of the just purchase optimized campaigns with 7 days attribution window, because those campaigns will often just focus on lowest hanging fruits, which is fine if you understand that and if your account structure takes that into consideration, because without it you're done. And there's a lot of mistakes being made on the accounts that we audit. Yeah. So another repercussion of all those changes was the pivot to incrementality tests. And they were there before, but they were not as popular like they are right now. And first, it even like it's also on the channels. So for example, Meta has a couple of different options for measuring incrementality. So I think 3 years ago, they reintroduced conversion lift tests for everybody. And if you only spend enough to get the statistical significance, you can very easily just create the conversion lift test on your own. So that's super cool, and that's very useful for smaller brands, for big brands as well. It's still not apples to apples if you compare that with Google tests and with other channel tests, but it's something. And then
So
Meta.
could you like in 2 words explain what conversion lift is?
So conversion lift test is on Meta or on Meta. It's incrementality tests that gets the holdout on the user's level, and then it's comparing the target group, so your business as usual campaigns versus the holdout. So users who are based on some number of parameters, they are similar, like the same as the group that actually sees your ads. So, and then when you compare the behavior of user who saw your ad versus those who didn't, then you can get the insights of what's the exact impact of our campaigns to revenue. So, for example, you can have like attributed revenue of attributed ROAS of 4, but not all of that is incremental. Some of that would happen anyway. Those users saw your ads, but some of them would convert even without them. And you want to know what's the ratio between those two numbers. So attributed ROAS and incremental ROAS, because that's basically the key number if you're looking for growth. And then you can obviously ask questions. So it's Meta legit with that conversion lift? Did they inflate the results? I think they pretty legit. I think those tests, the methodology looks quite good to me, and I believe them, although it's not apples to apples with Google tests, as I mentioned.
It's basically produced by Meta, so there will be always some kind of worry like from the perspective. Yeah, I'm just talking about from a perspective of a client, from a perspective of a client, let's say. And it will say, hey, if Meta is a side in that experiment, Meta is very incentivized to prove that their spend is incremental. A legitimate worry that in some kind of way they influence the results so that the channel looks very positive and optimistic. Like if you compare experiments from, let's say, Google, and it's possible that they try to inflate numbers. And I think that the history have seen a couple of situations like that in the past. So we can trust them, but at the same time, we have to be cautious, I think. always.
But I do trust them, maybe because I saw the very negative incrementality tests on Meta. So I know that they are also there, and you can have like negative results in the incrementality tests. So that's why I trust them. And then Meta has a lot of different incentives, and thinking that the main incentive is just to prove to advertisers that it's incremental, probably. But then Meta also wants you to trust them. What Meta is doing with those tests is basically, so Meta had, I guess, had the goal when they introduced the conversion lift test for everyone. They had the goal to train their algorithms to introduce incremental events optimization, and then to introduce incremental events just as a metric that you can see actually in the ads manager. So it's modeled, the metric in the ads manager, but it's there. So you can, so even without doing incrementality tests, you can track the attributed purchases and then the incremental purchases metric alongside it. So that's pretty cool. It's not, I wouldn't trust it 100%, but probably 75%. So if there's all zeros, you for sure you have a problem. And then if that looks really good, then most likely the efficiency is there.
I just recently have seen this conversation exchange of like basically post on x.com between Olivia and the founder of Common Thread Collective. And basically the question was why Meta does not introduce optimization towards new customers by default across all of the campaigns and all of the settings. I think they are incentivized to keep things as they are and maybe not always find the most efficient possible way to optimize, because it will keep more dollars flowing to the platform at least for some time, and they can keep some things under the hood and in hidden. Not all the methods are out there to be, but it's a different topic for another meeting probably, how ethical Meta or Google is in overall advertisement industry. But yeah, I'm from a camp that is a bit more cautious. I trust less. That's why I like platforms like House, because this is an independent judge that can indicate, and it doesn't have sides. Like it doesn't side with Meta, it doesn't side with Google. It's independent. That's why I trust it more. And I think that clients need a solution like that too.
So for sure, Meta is leaning into incrementality a lot. We can trust them or we cannot, but they are doing more than any other platforms on that particular topic. So they introduced that conversion lift, so that right now we do have the incremental events optimization, we have incremental events metrics, but they also introduced channel lift and search lift, and these are the tests that allow you to also like evaluate the impact that Meta has on other channels and on brand searches within the search engines. So with search lift, you can evaluate the traffic based on last click. So Meta Pixel looks at the URL of the user who just entered the website, and if the URL says that it came from, that user came from the brand search from Google, then Meta takes that into consideration in a search lift and looks, did that user saw the ad or didn't he? And then if you have enough spend, if you have enough impressions and enough purchases, you can actually assess with a pretty good statistical significance that Meta impacted Bing brand searches in some percentage with some incremental ROAS. So that's pretty
That makes
cool.
sense.
Yeah, but that's why I'm also cautious usually, but actually I think for sure Meta does a lot more than any other channels in terms of incrementality. They are leaning hard into it. I think channel lift and search lift and conversion lift are great tools. They are not perfect, and I still prefer just to use House to be able to compare Meta with other channels, but it's still pretty cool. And it's still a lot of useful data, and you will never do like geo tests every month for the same channel. So you can do House test in August, and then you can do Meta conversion lift in October, and you can compare those results. You can see the differences and the multipliers. So you can see that relationship between Meta. So maybe Meta's 20% more optimistic than House. And House, if we look at House, it's more objective than Meta. So then when we do 2 months later or 3 months later, we can do another test within Meta, and we can assess that, yeah, last time it was 20% too optimistic. It may be similar this time as well. So we can be more sure about the insights. So I think that's pretty cool.
Let's maybe steer back to the history, because I can see that you have a couple of more channels to go through, like where they are at the development stage of like the incrementality testing. Let's go it through, and yeah, because I think that we have to also show to the viewers, to someone that will watch it, like what's the end game basically. Why all these tests, all of these solutions are being created. Not all of the people that will watch us are pretty much tech marketers that are technical. I think that we will need to like zoom out a little bit at the end and show them slightly better what's the outcome of that. So what are the answers to the questions that can be answered with higher accuracy than just relying on, just classic attribution, as you said in the beginning.
Yeah. So looking like high level, looking at that, I think first of all you have to have some idea about the incrementality of your whole paid media system. So you can have a company that's growing, but you have to have some idea of that incrementality, because it may be growing organically and you may be wasting money on paid media despite the growth. And there may be better places to spend money than you're spending right now. And you may be growing a lot, but you could be growing even more if you would be spending in a way that brings incremental revenue. So I think that's super important just for everyone. And if you're not doing incrementality tests, but you're growing and you have like $1 million company, I think that's just wrong, and it may backfire. If not
So,
now, then in
so
a
as
couple
I
of years.
understand this one scenario that you just described, if you see growth, it doesn't mean that the growth is driven by paid media. You have to run, even in such a scenario, you should run a test just to check what's the impact of overall your whole digital media presence. And I guess a holdout test is the answer here, and just to see like what's the number. Is it 20%? Is it 0? Is it like 50%, 70? And then you will know like how. And if it's like 0 and you've been spending money, it can be frustrating, because you've been doing that for like a couple of years or a year, half a year, but then you realize I have to make a change, and then you make the changes that actually, to marketing, media mix and methodologies, creatives, and everything, is that actually is incremental, maybe 2 times more, 3 times more incremental, and then as a result you start growing faster, and you start catching up, and you increase your growth rate basically. So knowing that is extremely valuable. So yeah,
So
this is like the highest level.
yeah, so the most important rule here is that correlation is not causation. You may be growing and you may be spending a lot, but that doesn't mean that you are growing because you're spending in the right places. So there's that. Then yeah, you have to evaluate the whole paid media spend, but the thing with that is this will not bring you action items on the channel level, because you will just know that you're doing things wrong or you're doing things quite right, but there's just that. So for example, we have one client that's looking into maybe spending a bit less on paid media, so that organic may drive more growth next year. And then in that situation, it totally makes sense to do a test like this, so the whole digital spend, because you will exactly know how much is your digital paid media spend worth right now. And maybe it's 80% of your revenue, and maybe it's 20. And if you just, without knowing that number, if you just cut the spend, there's no way you can know what will happen. You may have some projections, but yeah, just I think.
I would just add that even if you cut it out for like 1 month or 2 weeks or longer, it's just directionally correct tip, basically. It's not a clear answer that 20% is driven by, digital, because, the users have exposure the whole year on the ads, and some users, they need time to convert. Sometimes there is word of mouth. There's a lot going on. So it's just a tip, a directionally correct answer. That's something that, I just wanted to add an asterisk here. That's what I think about it. But let's. So then the next step, I guess, are channel level tests to basically get and to refine the answer, like how incremental each channel is. And then at the end, I imagine you could have like a very simplified table with list of channels, and what was the incremental test impact, and there's the most incremental channel, that the least incremental channel, and this is the whole digital incrementality test result. This is based on that we made the following changes, and we believe the next year, based on the results of these tests, we will experience higher efficiency of our media mix, let's say, in very simplified manner.
Yes, because in true there are lots of like caveats to look at. So for example, as we started the discussion with the idea of doing the tests in the promo period versus outside of the promo period. So you can do that for the key channels. Then once you get the test done, you want to get some action insights from the action items from this test. You want to introduce those action items, and then you want to evaluate the improvement. So that's also that. So you have to have a tracker that tracks all the tests that ended, all the action items that were done because of the test, and then you want to, from time to time, like every 3-4 weeks, you want to look at those action items and really check if they improved things or not. So there's that. And then you also want to test the tactics inside of the channel. So for example, if we test Meta and we see that incremental ROAS is at almost 3, and then we test TikTok and let's say it's 1.5, we want to get TikTok efficiency to the Meta efficiency level. So we have to create some hypotheses how we do that. So first of all, why it's not at this level? If TikTok has incremental audience that's not that active on Meta, or maybe it's not on Meta at all, then we should be able to get the efficiency increased. So maybe users' behavior is different on TikTok. Maybe we need like very different creatives. Maybe we need different campaign types. Maybe we need different landing pages. Maybe we need something else. Maybe we need like video views optimized campaigns on TikTok just to get the algorithms to find new users. So maybe we need new user optimization event, because that's also possible. So there's a lot
strategist role, basically, to prioritize all of the ideas how to fix specific channels from like operational level to tactical, operational, strategic, the whole media basically conversation.
But it's also a lot of fun. I mean, it's like 3D puzzles that have like real life effects. So that's just pretty cool. Yeah, but some tests will have very basic action items. So for example, we recently did a branded search test on Google, and it was incremental ROAS was at 0.5. So it's pretty bad. So we just decreased the spending there. And the assumption here is that we will want to track the competitors' activity within our branded keywords. And in some periods, it will increase for sure. And once it will increase, we have to increase our spend as well, just to be safe from those activities.
I have a name for that strategy. It could be reactive defense. So when someone attacks, this is when you go and defend. But what's the point of like spending on defense when there is nobody attacking your brand and trying to capture your traffic?
And from what I understand, it's actually a common mistake. So companies are spending on average a lot too much on branded searches because it's just not incremental.
That's one of the top 3 tests to be done for any brand, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think about going back to the workshop list and maybe speeding up a little bit on specific topics, but just making sure that we went through the whole list, the whole story, and maybe we could have like one more discussion, and then we could slowly try to wrap up the discussion today.
So just to quickly finish the like channel incrementality things. So Meta is for sure a leader in the leaning into incrementality team. They do a lot, but then TikTok follows, and TikTok also has a lot of cool options. Reddit is not there yet, but it's also going in that direction. So there's that. The next topic is actually attribution modeling. So all the tools that allow you to model your attribution. So tools like Triple Whale, Nordbeam, and I think they still can help a lot. But I think the best time for those kind of tools was a couple of years ago. And the way they all work, they are slowly introducing new things. So Nordbeam has MMM modeling, and they have like they are slowly introducing, as far as I understand, the incrementality capabilities as well, although it's not available yet, as far as I know. Triple Whale has some beta incrementality functions. They both have the CAPI enhancer, so server-side enhancer, because those tools are always connected to the backend. They have all the data, so they are able to send good quality data back to the channels. So both Nordbeam and Triple Whale are leaning into that.
So they both of the tools are connected on the back end, and they also are synced with like let's say Shopify, and they enrich the data, then they send the enriched data using their methodology and algorithms. That's why their conversion API or server-side conversion is more accurate thanks to that.
Yes, and for example, Nordbeam has deterministic attribution, which allows you to look at, let's say, TikTok revenue up to the level of individual user. So you're actually able to see the individual users that are attributed to TikToks and who they are, where they from, and stuff like that.
Thanks to that thanks to the fact that they have all the data basically connected and the attribution connected down to the specific user. We had another episode on Triple Whale AI agent that allows you to, basically build on the fly different types of reports and monitor in ambient mode different activities, what's going on across all your channel. To be honest, that's the topic that I would like to also cover in one of the next conversations that we'll have, because I believe that this is the future.
Yeah.
Like if I zoom out, we could say that, attribution modeling is not that great anymore. That's why they are introducing solutions similar to House, which focuses heavily on incrementality testing. So they also introduce incrementality testing. They also introduce media mix modeling, which is like a statistical method to evaluate and predict basically demand and just the results of the media mix that you use. And it's basically all of these tools are kind of becoming similar to some extent, and they try to replicate the attribution triangulation concept, right?
Bit, but there are different concepts within that are leading those tools. So some of the tools are looking to have the biggest range of options, and then if you have a lot of different options, like you have multi-touch attribution, you have a media mix modeling, and then you have incrementality tests, and then you have server-side data enhancer, and then you have option to integrate with Klaviyo and optimize your flows in Klaviyo using all that data. We actually have clients where only Klaviyo, even only looking at Klaviyo optimization, this already pays for the tool, and we are paying a lot for the tool. So if you have more options, there's a chance that maybe some of the option will not work for everyone. Maybe media mix modeling will be useless for some reason. Maybe you don't have enough good quality data, and then you're still going to use the tool, and you're still going to love the tool because there are other functionalities that you may benefit from. So that's one option. And then I heard about another idea, which is you really want to be sure about your branding and about what you're doing, and you want to be a leader in that one thing, and then companies that are looking for that one thing will go to you because you are the leader. You don't necessarily have to have like 10 different options. You can have only one or two, but you want to be the best within
I
that
get it.
particular niche.
Like the house positioning right now in terms of like incrementality testing, but
I
like
think so.
but I'm just wondering on the future. I think that yeah, but anyway, like they have to go where their clients they expect them to be. So if say you have an incrementality testing platform and the client, the CMO thinks that they need also media mix modeling or multi-touch attribution platform, they will look for some alternatives. And if the alternative also have incrementality testing that turns out to be as good as the player number one, that's a threat to the number one player. So I think that there will be more consolidation and offering similar solutions to different clients. But like that's about the future of that industry. Anyway, we are the clients and we are the strategists who have to know how to use these tools. And probably from what you hear, have a lot of clients have these tools. They have the license, but the agency teams and the strategists, the CMO, the heads of growth, they don't use these tools enough to get answers faster. Because what matters if you have the best, let's say, ammo and rifles and cannons, you have to know how to use them, because the equipment itself doesn't produce value. You also have to know, you have to have the team to know how to use it. And what matters here is the velocity of testing, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that's something that every CMO that has access to NorthBeam, Triple Whale, a house or any solution like this should be on the lookout to check like what's the velocity of testing and the usage of the platforms that they have access to.
Yeah, but I think that's totally right, and I think there are lots of dots here, and you have to have like people who are able to connect them one to the other. And I think there are not many people that can do that on the market because there's just a lot there, and you have to like understand all that stuff to be able to see that what's the best solution for the company, and then what's the best way forward. I think it's still highly technical.
And
To
I think that
understand.
it's not deterministic. It's very probabilistic, basically. You have to have an investor mindset. You have to kind of, see different results of different experiments, see this is not math. It's not binary. It's not 0 or 1. So, okay, I mean, you've got a lot of screenshots still to go. Wow. Okay. Should we go through all of them and wrap up? You think it's possible?
I don't think so. I think every.
So let's name this session as session number 1, and we could continue the next week and maybe finish that session, and maybe it's gonna be shorter one. Anyway, yeah, let's do it, and let's wrap up for today. Thanks a lot, Pavel, for
Thank you.
an awesome conversation.
Yeah, it was cool. Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.